Good afternoon, Excellencies, Honorary Jeff Sessions, Attorney General of the United States, Baroness William of Trafford, Minister for Countering Extremism of the UK Home Office, Honorary Abu Bakar Malami, Attorney General and Minister of Justice of Nigeria, Honorary Jayanta Jayasuriya, Attorney General of Sri Lanka, Mr. Valery Chali, Ukraine Ambassador to the United States of America, Ms. Sandy Okoro, Senior Vice President and Group General Counsel, the World Bank, distinguished guests and participants. It's my honor to welcome you all here, and on behalf of the World Bank and our partner in the Stolen Asset Recovery Initiative, the UN Office for Drugs and Crime, I would like to warmly welcome you to the inaugural Global Forum for Asset Recovery. It's an honor to host all of you here at the World Bank, and welcome as well all of those that are following on live transmission. The role of the media and civil society organizations in investigating and exposing grand corruption, advocating for policy reform, and demanding transparency from elected public officials is critical to our shared goal of fighting corruption. Corruption is the result of the abuse of public office held by those who are in power for their private gain. It follows that to fight corruption, we just cannot rely on those who are in power and potentially stand to benefit from corruption alone. This is why I'm extremely happy to see much interest from civil society and media here today. Our goal for the next 3 days is twofold. One, to make real progress on active asset recovery cases, and second, to build a robust foundation for better collaboration and cooperation, improved global capacity for tracing and returning stolen assets for decades to come. Delegates from over 28 countries have gathered here today to demonstrate their political commitment to asset recovery and work out real solutions to return funds looted by corrupt officials to people to whom they rightfully belong. Looking around this room, it occurs to me that this amount of global expertise in tracking down, confiscating, and returning proceeds from corruption has probably never before been assembled in a single room. This alone is quite an achievement and an unprecedented opportunity for building relationships and improving cooperation. The timing for this forum could not have been better, with the International Anti-Corruption Day coming up on Saturday, December 9th. Our hashtags for this event are hashtag GFAR 2017, and this year's Anti-Corruption Day hashtag is hashtag United Against Corruption. In addition to country delegations and asset recovery practitioners, I would like to welcome all representatives of civil society organizations and members of the media who could join us here today or are watching online. Returning assets held in secret corporate structures or parked in multiple jurisdictions is an arduous task that is fraught with legal complications. It requires patience, it requires legal capacity, and building lasting relationship between many different actors, both private and public. The 4 focus countries in this forum, Nigeria, Sri Lanka, Tunisia, and Ukraine, face the challenges of unraveling a maze of individuals, businesses, and financial centers in their investigations into finding assets hidden abroad and going through the legal process of multiple countries to freeze and return them. Many other countries are in the same situation. The Global Forum for Asset Recovery provides an opportunity to help countries make progress in their asset recovery efforts by sharing experiences and best practices. We have a very packed agenda, so let me hand over to Sandy Okoro, the World Bank Senior Vice President and General Counsel, for her opening remarks. Please join me in welcoming her.
Good afternoon. Your Excellencies, Mr. Jeff Sessions, Attorney General of the United States, Baroness Williams of Trafford, Minister for Countering Extremism at the UK Home Office, distinguished guests and participants. I'm extremely pleased and honoured to welcome you to the World Bank Group for the inaugural meeting of the Global Forum on Asset Recovery. Together with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, our partner in the Stolen Asset Recovery Initiative, the World Bank is pleased to provide a platform for countries to further the cause of the fight against corruption in general and the recovery of stolen assets in particular. We've been fighting corruption for a long time. It is over 20 years ago that James Wolfensohn, the former president of the World Bank Group, delivered what has come to be known as the Cancer of Corruption speech. He highlighted the devastating impact of corruption on the poor and how it affects every aspect of development. We've made a lot of progress since then, but as more and more instances of corruption come to light, we know there is much, much more to do. Corruption is Robin Hood in reverse. It steals from the poor and vulnerable and gives to the rich and powerful. If we are to make sustained progress in the pursuit of the World Bank's twin goals, which are to end extreme poverty and boost shared prosperity, we must double our efforts in the fight against corruption. The focus of this global forum on asset recovery is to bring law enforcement and development specialists together to combat corruption more effectively. This provides both the opportunity to lay out the case against corruption and to put words into action by furthering anti-corruption efforts of our 4 focus countries: Nigeria, Sri Lanka, Tunisia and Ukraine. The forum seeks to ensure that public resources stolen from these countries are ultimately returned to the public purse to support public good. Public resources should benefit all, not just the few. This is a key aspect of shared prosperity. We know corruption is an issue in all countries. Those where bribes are paid, those where proceeds are laundered, and those on the receiving end. It takes 2 to tango, as they say. But corruption is rarely only a 2-person dance. While the focus is often on the giver and the taker in corruption transactions, considerably less attention is paid to those who enable corruption more broadly. This is a problem the world over. Breaking these alliances of corrupt officials and their enablers and recovering the proceeds of corruption requires a strong partnership and political will in different quarters. We also hope that this event will send a strong message on the importance of independent institutions, from the investigative arms to the prosecutorial bodies through to the judiciary. We must also not forget that as we speak, institutions that play a key role in ultimately recovering stolen assets are under pressure in many countries. We must show them unwavering support to accomplish their mission. We know that successful anti-corruption efforts, as well as partners in both inside and outside of government and different countries working together, must pursue these aims. That is why the participants of the 2016 Anti-Corruption Summit in London agreed to convene this forum. We're happy to welcome not only the focus countries, Nigeria, Sri Lanka, Tunisia and Ukraine, but also the US and the UK, who are co-hosts of this forum. We also welcome representatives of financial centres from various jurisdictions, as well as civil society organisations, many of whom are represented here today. The Global Forum on Asset Recovery is a milestone in a journey that started many years ago. It draws on lessons learned from previous asset recovery forums focusing on the Middle East and Ukraine. And it brings together the political and the technical, coming from government and civil society, from countries which have lost their assets and from financial centres. This is not a conference for talking, this is a conference for doing. There are going to be further efforts to recoup stolen assets and to deliver these results for citizens. We sincerely believe that the forum will catalyse concrete steps to further asset recovery efforts by making immediate progress in individual cases, by improving technical capacity with a longer-term view, and by laying foundations for new relations between practitioners in countries to facilitate future asset recovery efforts. Asset recovery is a long-term effort that requires tenacity and creativity to be successful. The Memorandum of Understanding that is about to be signed today between Switzerland, Nigeria and the World Bank is a case in point. We are convinced that collectively we have the expertise and persistence to bring justice to those who did wrong and to ensure that repatriation of stolen assets, and in doing this, to fully respect due process and the all-important rule of law. Where there is a will, there is a way. For our part, we are committed to contributing to this process through the World Bank UN ODC STAR initiative. Let me just finish by thanking the co-hosts, the governments of the United States and the United Kingdom, for convening this very important forum, and to the 4 focus countries, Nigeria, Sri Lanka, Tunisia and Ukraine, for their dedication and hard work in the run-up to this forum. To all of you participants, from governments, from partner organisations, from civil society organisations, we wish you all success in the days and years ahead and commend you for your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. I would like to also echo Sandy and thank, on behalf of the World Bank and our partner, the Stolen Asset Recovery Initiative, I'd like to, and the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, like to thank the United States and the United Kingdom for their leadership in advancing the international asset recovery agenda. I would now like to give the floor to the 2 co-hosting countries of the Global Forum on Asset Recovery, the United States and the United Kingdom. Your generous support for GFAR has made this event possible, so thank you. We are delighted to have Honorary Jeff Sessions, Attorney General of the United States, with us. So, Honorary Jeff Sessions, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sandy and Jayla, and for that kind introduction. And thanks for taking your extensive experience in the legal community and in the business world alike to put it to good use here at the World Bank. The World Bank has had a long history of expressing concern and taking action to help us reduce corruption worldwide. I can't tell you how strongly I share that vision. I'm absolutely convinced that nations cannot reach the highest level of productivity and progress and economic growth with large problems of corruption within those countries. It erodes the confidence of the people. It erodes the confidence of an investor who may be considering building a complex facility in a nation. If they don't feel comfortable that they will be able to conduct their business with integrity and it would be subject to corrupt activities, that will be a major detriment to that country. We felt that in the United States and states around the United States, some of those states had reputations of corruption. As a young prosecutor, I remember prosecuting a host of public corruption cases. And I'm absolutely convinced that my state and that region is improved its integrity, and it was a big factor in economic growth that's occurred since then. So I just would say to you, I share the World Bank and all of your interest in focusing on that. Much has been done, and we must do our work in a shared fashion. I want to recognize our distinguished guests from the 4 focus countries and from our partners in Brazil and Switzerland. It's an honor for me to open the forum today. I think it's a unique opportunity to bring together investigators, prosecutors, judges, policymakers, and civil society organizations so that we can learn from one another, build relationships. That's so critical to us all. Year by year and day by day, our economies have become increasingly interconnected. And just as our economies have gone global, so have the consequences of criminal activity. Criminals are not bound by borders. I remember, and we still have, on the border of my home state of Alabama and Florida, a club, a nightclub, a bar you might call it, a honky-tonk in the old days, that was right on the line. And the name of it was the Flora-Bama. And they painted a white line down the middle of the bar. And so if the police raided from Florida, everybody would run over to the Alabama side of the line. And if they were raided from Alabama, they would run over to the Florida side of the line. But I think that's a real insight for us. Criminals are smart. People who do not want to follow the laws work hard to identify ways to exploit the different jurisdictions around the world and be able to make their apprehension much more difficult. Bribes paid to an official in West Africa can be spent on a yacht in Miami. Dangerous drugs produced in Afghanistan or Colombia can kill a teenager in Cincinnati, Ohio, or Sydney. A social media post in Syria can inspire a terrorist attack in Europe. A criminal from Mexico can victimize innocent people in Portland or San Francisco. In the United States, we know too well that the consequences of crime can be international. People across America today are talking about the tragic death of Kate Steinle, a 32-year-old woman who was shot in the back walking along a pier in San Francisco. The man holding the gun had illegally entered the United States 6 times. Been deported 5 times. He admitted he was in San Francisco because the city does not cooperate with enforcement, and he had been charged over the years with as many as 10 crimes. He should not have been in the country. Kate Steinle would be with us today had that not happened. So each one of us, whether we are prosecutors, judges, or legislators, have a responsibility to pursue the common good for the people we serve. And while each of us has limited jurisdiction, we must recognize that the consequences of our actions are felt around the world. You can be sure of this: the United States will do our part, and we urge every government to do their part as well. Over the next few minutes, I'd like to discuss a few of the ways that the United States and all of us need to work together in a cooperative spirit with our law enforcement officers around the globe to achieve successes that benefit all of us. First, we have seized or restrained $3.5 billion worth of corrupt proceeds involved in money laundering offenses. $3.5 billion. Since 2004, the United States has returned millions in corrupt proceeds to compensate victims around the world. That includes approximately $119 million to the people of Italy, $115 million to the people of Kazakhstan, more than $20 million to the people of Peru, millions more to the people of Nicaragua, South Korea, and Taiwan. That recovery has only been possible because of the cooperation internationally with our law enforcement partners. You may be familiar with some of the cases. For example, nearly half of the $3.5 billion in corruption proceeds we have restrained is related to just one law enforcement action. The action was related to a Malaysian sovereign wealth fund known as 1MDB. 1MDB was created by the Malaysian government to promote long-term economic development for the benefit of the Malaysian people. But allegedly, corrupt officials and their associates reportedly used the funds for a lavish spending spree. $200 million for real estate in Southern California and New York. $130 million for artwork, $100 million in an American music company, not to mention a $265 million yacht. In total, one MDB officials allegedly laundered more than $4.5 billion in funds through a complex series of opaque transactions and fraudulent shell companies with bank accounts in countries ranging from Switzerland to Singapore, Luxembourg, and the United States. This is kleptocracy at its worst. Today, the United States Department of Justice is working to provide justice to the victims of these alleged schemes. As a prosecutor for 14 years, I know firsthand that the best evidence is often simple things like bank records, airplane records, telephone records. If they're not properly shared between nations, then in many cases, justice just cannot be done, or certainly it's delayed. It is essential that we continue to improve this kind of information sharing. It does not threaten our sovereignty. It does not threaten our legal system, but it's part of a cooperative effort that benefits us all. So that's why we must all do more to expedite mutual legal assistance requests. That's something I have an interest in and become informed on and believe that we at the United States need to do better about. And I hope you will consider that. These requests ensure that prosecutors have the evidence they need to bring a criminal to justice. And in response to the increasing volume and complexity of legal assistance requests, our department, the Department of Justice, has taken two actions that are critically important since I've become Attorney General. First, we've increased staffing levels at the Department's Office of International Affairs, or OIA. Second, OIA has created two new units dedicated to reviewing and executing foreign information requests. As a result, OIA has significantly reduced its backlog by thousands of cases in the last number of months, despite receiving 16% more requests in fiscal year 2016 than in 2015. And I don't think that trend is going to decline. I think you'll receive more requests each year from your governments. We're confident we're going to be receiving more requests each year in the United States. So these are important steps, but we must and can do more to help each other. So I challenge all of you to quickly and effectively devote more resources to these problems, reducing your backlog too. You know how serious these cases can be. There's no time to waste. Delay in records is a delay in justice. We will do our part, but we've got to have partnerships from all of you. So our department is also working towards the implementation of a framework with some of our closest allies that would supplement our MLAT process, the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty process. And it would reduce potential conflicts of law regarding the disclosure of electronic evidence. That kind of framework would enhance public safety efforts in the United States and around the world. In order for this type of framework to function, however, we need to ensure that our warrants continue to be effective even when an American company chooses to store customer data outside the United States. And we're working on that now. When we have access to the right evidence, we can get results. Earlier this year, we worked with the foreign authorities to arrest the alleged creator of the Kelios botnet. Over several years, this network was used to steal login credentials, distribute hundreds of millions of spam emails, and install ransomware and other malicious software around the globe. These are highly disruptive, costly actions that need to be stopped as soon as possible. That pernicious network of tens of thousands of infected computers has now been dismantled. This summer, with the help of 8 of our allies around the globe, we dismantled the largest dark net market, perhaps in existence, Alpha Bay. It operated for more than 2 years and was used to sell a host of illicit items, including deadly illegal drugs like fentanyl and other drugs, and firearms. At one time, more than 40,000 vendors, sellers advertised on that site, advertising contraband for sale. Drugs sold on that site have been linked to overdose deaths around the country. Young people getting drugs, getting fentanyl, had no idea how much of that drug could be deadly, just the smallest amount. We know of a 13-year-old who got a drug, fentanyl, from another teenager, a little older, and he died from it in this country. We have 60-some-odd thousand people last year died in this country from opioid overdoses alone. Now this site has been completely taken down. The Justice Department has also indicted foreign cyber criminals who've broken into systems in the United States looking to steal ideas that make our nation strong and competitive in the global marketplace. This we will not allow to continue. One of the cases we are prosecuting involved the theft of technology that allegedly caused $800 million in losses. That is more than 10 times the largest bank robbery on record. Intellectual property theft is so important today that G20 leaders have agreed that no country should steal trade secrets or other confidential business information in order to take advantage its companies or commercial sectors. The Department of Justice is committed to bringing those responsible for intellectual property-related crimes to justice. The United States has often been a victim of this, and we intend to fight these crimes vigorously. All of us need to do a better job of properly evaluating extradition requests. And it's unacceptable, I think, for nations, and so many do, flatly refuse to extradite their own citizens who've committed crimes in another country. We simply have got to work on this. It is not a way to have partnerships to give safe haven to people who commit crimes in our brother and sister countries. The United States seeks to participate in economic activity worldwide. We believe we have a strong record of fairly and professionally prosecuting criminal activity globally, and we will work hard to assist our global partners in their efforts to crack down on fraud and abuse. But we will insist on cooperation also from our global partners. Many of the countries in this room have honored our extradition request, allowing fugitives to undergo the judicial process in the United States, and we work hard to make sure everyone in this country is given fair trial. And I want to thank you for that. Thank also so many of you who share information on a regular basis so that we can crack down on international frauds. And we are working to plan to be quicker and more effective for you in the future. Cooperation works. It's essential. We know that at the Department of Justice firsthand. In the early 90s, I was the United States Attorney in Alabama, and I came to Washington to meet with then U.S. Attorney General Dick Thornburgh, and he was discussing the challenges that he faced. And he said, I had no idea how international our work has become. Well, it has increased every year globally and internationally. We know that. So thank you all for the ongoing efforts against crime. We fully respect your borders and the importance of borders. Indeed, borders are an essential component of sovereignty, but if we work together, respectful of each other's rights, we can more effectively stop transnational criminals. And we must do so. So I look forward to working together with you and to achieve many more successes in the future. Good luck on your conference.
Thank you, Mr. Sessions. As one of the first countries worldwide, the UK introduced last year a national beneficial ownership registry to help identify the ultimate beneficiaries of corporate entities that are often used to hide stolen public funds. This is a very important step towards greater corporate transparency, and I look forward to hearing from the UK about this experience. Let me now introduce Baroness Williams of Trafford, Minister for Countering Extremism at the UK Home Office, who will share some opening remarks. Baroness Williams, please.
Well, Attorney General Sessions, Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am very pleased to be here this afternoon addressing the inaugural meeting of the Global Forum on Asset Recovery. I would like to thank our co-host, the United States of America, for their excellent partnership and collaboration. And I would also like to thank the World Bank for hosting us all today. The expertise of the Stolen Asset Recovery Initiative has played a critical role in making GFAR happen. And I would like to thank everyone who is here today for engaging on GFAR, whether you are representing government, civil society, an international organisation, or indeed the media. Many of you have travelled a great distance to be here and have put a great deal of resource and energy into the preparations leading up to today. Governments, citizens and businesses around the world are clear. Corruption channels precious resources away from essential public services, corrodes the fabric of our societies and institutions, and stifles trade and investment. I am proud to say that GFAR was a key commitment at the London Anti-Corruption Summit last May. The summit represented a watershed moment where 40 governments made over 600 new commitments to drive out corruption in all its form. At the summit, 21 countries committed to strengthen or reinforce legislation to ensure stolen assets can be recovered. 11 countries committed to develop guidelines for the transparency and accountable return of stolen assets. We agreed to found an international anti-corruption coordination centre based in London to coordinate efforts to prosecute the corrupt and seize stolen assets. And of course, we agreed that there would be a global forum for asset recovery in 2017, focusing on Nigeria, Sri Lanka, Tunisia and the Ukraine. Since the summit, we have made very good progress. The International Anti-Corruption Coordination Centre was officially launched in July and is hosted by the National Crime Agency in London. It brings together experts from the UK, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Singapore, Interpol and the US to tackle big multi-jurisdictional corruption cases, locate stolen assets and bring the perpetrators to justice. The IACCC has a significant list of cases under development already. There is a growing groundswell of international determination to ensure the corrupt are brought to justice. Requesting countries rightly want their assets returned. Financial centres rightly want to protect their reputations. We know we cannot sustain a credible dialogue with partner developing countries on tackling corruption if it can be pointed back to us that our companies are bribing for contracts, our banks and financial systems are enabling leakage to occur. We take our global responsibilities very seriously. It is not easy to identify and return the proceeds of corruption, but if we do nothing, then we simply encourage corrupt politicians and officials today and in the future to believe that they too can enrich themselves at the expense of their citizens. There are two core elements at the heart of GFAR that I want to talk about. One is partnership and the other is action. On the first, over the next 3 days, here in Washington, we will reinforce many strong and existing partnerships and build new ones too. We hope that GFAR will help to forge long-lasting new channels of communication. We will also welcome and develop the capacity-building assistance that is so vital for building understanding and expertise. I'm sure I speak not only for the UK, but for all of us when I say how much we value the work of Karen, of Egmont, of ISAR and STAR. We remain committed to supporting their international asset recovery efforts. The UK's network of criminal justice advisors and international liaison officials provide operational and mentoring support to help our partners navigate UK asset recovery and beneficial ownership systems, and we have published updated guidance on the STAR website, and I urge others to do the same. The UK is active in many areas of asset recovery work. For example, the Department for International Development, or DFID, is supporting the International Centre for Asset Recovery, ISAR, to develop key experts to work on specific cases, including in Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, Kyrgyzstan and Malawi, to return and recover up to £2.5 billion of stolen assets. DFID will also support the new Egmont Centre for Financial Intelligence Unit Excellence and Leadership to build up the skills of financial intelligence units by funding technical experts, mentoring and peer learning. This will give FIUs more tools to investigate money laundering, share intelligence across borders, prosecute corruption and seize stolen assets. We are fully committed to providing technical assistance to our partners, but as with all partnerships, we need something from them too, as the Attorney General said. Our courts will not order the confiscation of assets without an evidential link between criminal activity and those assets. We cannot secure the evidence for ourselves, and we sometimes struggle to obtain it. To bring cases to a successful conclusion, we need our partners to persist in obtaining and sharing the information that we need. We know the system can work. The UK has successfully returned assets to Zambia, to Macau and to Libya. Our courts have ordered the repayment of tens of millions of pounds confiscated from companies accused of bribing foreign government officials. Over the course of this forum, we will hear of further successes. This proves that deep and close cooperation can produce results. But it takes both the requesting and the requested country to be willing to share for us to make real progress. And that brings me to the second of the key themes, and that's action. We are determined to tackle corruption and to return stolen assets. The Global Forum on Asset Recovery has brought us all together to confirm our commitment to this common goal. But we're also here to seek practical solutions to the barriers that we face. We must recognise that partnership and technical assistance must be followed up with action and lasting commitment, and that asset recovery efforts are most effective when they are in lockstep with all of our wider work to fight economic crime, money laundering and corruption. The UK is absolutely committed to these goals. We are determined to see robust action, greater transparency, the effective enforcement of existing laws, and new and bold plans to deal with money launderers and the corrupt. Our dedicated International Corruption Unit in the UK National Crime Agency investigates cases where money stolen from developing countries has been laundered through the UK, or where UK companies and nationals have bribed in developing countries. Since funding began in 2006, £170 million has been frozen, recovered or returned, and there have been 28 convictions of individuals and companies for money laundering and bribery. Improving transparency of beneficial ownership is another area of critical importance to successful asset recovery. Anonymously owned companies are the favoured getaway vehicles of the corrupt. They are used 70% of the time to launder the proceeds of grand corruption, according to World Bank research. The UK has led the way on opening up to public scrutiny the beneficial ownership of companies. In July 2016, the UK became the first G20 country to have a public register of company beneficial ownership information. We hope others will follow. We're pleased that from July of this year, our overseas territories with financial centres and our Crown dependencies have established central registers of company beneficial ownership information and can now provide enhanced information exchange with our law enforcement colleagues to assist investigations. And we continue to work towards our commitment to establish a new public register of foreign companies' beneficial ownership information. Once in place, foreign companies will not be able to buy property in the UK or secure government contracts if they don't submit the necessary information. This will reduce the opportunities for criminals to use shell companies to hide their illicit wealth in London property. It is crucial that beneficial ownership transparency is a global effort in order to eliminate all safe havens for corrupt money. We are funding Open Ownership's global register to bring together this information from around the world. Launched this year, it shows the connections between people and companies worldwide and already contains information on over 4 million companies. We congratulate Ukraine on becoming an early adopter of the register. In April of this year, I oversaw the passing of the Criminal Finances Act, which will significantly improve our capability to recover the proceeds of crime, particularly through two new and highly innovative powers. First, unexplained wealth orders will enable our law enforcement to challenge individuals who appear to have resources that are inconsistent with their apparent means. This reverses the burden of proof, placing the obligation on the defendant to justify and explain their wealth, and is potentially an enormous leap forward in our approach to rooting out dirty money in the UK. They will come into operation early next year. Secondly, the Act also introduces a criminal offence for corporations who fail to prevent their staff from facilitating tax evasion following the proven failure to prevent model in our Bribery Act. As we know, none of this will be quick, and certainly none of it is easy, but we and all financial centres know the importance of this work and seeing justice done while maintaining the integrity and reputations of our systems and financial centres. We are clear about getting tougher with irresponsible behaviour and taking on the criminals, at home and abroad, who seek only to enrich themselves and their associates. I wish you all the very best for a successful and productive conference ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Baroness Williams. As we move to the second part of the session, let me accompany our distinguished co-host off stage. Thank you, everyone. So we are continuing with the second part of this session, assigning ceremony of a Memorandum of Understanding between Nigeria, Switzerland, and the World Bank Group. So bear with us as we do the logistics. I would now like to invite His Excellency Ambassador Roberto Balzaretti, His Excellency Ambassador Pio Wenupst, Honorary Abubakar Malami, and Mr. Rashid Benassad, World Bank Country Director for Nigeria, to the stage, please. As Sandy just said, this is not a conference for talking, but a forum for doing. And is there a better way to start things off than a successful agreement over a return of over $300 million in stolen assets? So I am delighted to announce that Switzerland, Nigeria, and the World Bank have agreed to return $321 million of assets to their rightful owners, the Nigerian people. This is money that was stolen from Nigeria's public purse by the family of President Abacha over 2 decades ago. Right now, we are about to witness the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding, an MOU, which outlines the repatriation, monitoring, and disbursement processes for the stolen assets, as well as a note of the contributions of the federal government of Nigeria, Swiss Federal Council, and the World Bank to the implementation of the memorandum. The signatories to the MOU and the note are, for Switzerland, His Excellency Ambassador Roberto Balzaretti, Secretary of State and Head of the Directorate of International Law at the Federal Department of Foreign Affairs of Switzerland, and His Excellency Ambassador Pio Venubst. Please. For Nigeria, Mr. Abubakar Malami, Attorney General and Minister of Justice of Nigeria. Please welcome. And for the World Bank Group, our country director for Nigeria, Rashid Benesam. Rashid. The signing of the MOU today follows a 2015 decision by a Swiss court that the Swiss government should repatriate the funds on the condition that the World Bank would monitor their use. Back in 2006, the World Bank was involved in a similar framework, providing institutional support for the return and use of approximately $723 million in public funds that had been corruptly diverted by General Abacha. As requested by the Nigerian authorities, the plan is for these funds to be used to support a program of targeted cash transfers to poor and vulnerable Nigerians under the National Social Safety Net project, which is financed by a credit extended by the International Development Association. The World Bank, in its role to provide institutional support and monitoring the use of these funds, is honored to be a part of this process. The responsibility for the distribution and the use of funds is obviously with the federal government of Nigeria. And with that, let's proceed to the signing ceremony. I would first like to introduce Nigeria authorities, Honorary Malawi, to make a few remarks. Please, sir.
Well, this is indeed a great day. It is memorable, not only because of the fact that we are signing the Memorandum of Understanding, but because of the fact that it signifies international collaboration in the fight against corruption. It is a clear indication that for us to successfully and internationally fight corruption, collaboration and cooperation is indeed necessary and material. Global Forum on Asset Recovery inaugural meeting today has signified what we can achieve collectively through the process of international collaboration and cooperation. On our own fight of the divide coming from the Nigerian side, it signifies the political will to fight corruption on the part of the leadership. President Muhammadu Buhari has demonstrated extraordinarily commitment, political desire to fight corruption, and what we are witnessing this evening is a manifestation of that political will and desire. I thank the Swiss Federal Council and indeed the World Bank for cooperating with Nigeria in the art of fighting, not only the fight against corruption, but the eventual repatriation of the proceeds of ill-gotten wealth. I thank you most sincerely for participating. Thank you.
Thank you. And Swiss representatives for their remarks, please.
Thank you very much, Excellency, dear Minister. I couldn't agree more. This is an historical moment. This is the first of, hopefully, a series of agreements we will be able to conclude and repatriate money which is still hidden in our financial system. Now, the best person to talk about this agreement, to address this audience, is my colleague and dear friend, Ambassador Pio Venubst. He has led the delegation, the Swiss delegation, successfully led the Swiss delegation to the conclusion of this agreement. I know no best person to talk about the agreement than he, so I will give him the floor. Please, Pio.
Thanks, Roberto. So thank you. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as said, this is really for us an historical moment, and I really mean it. And I would like to commend the Nigerian authorities and the World Bank country team for setting up a highly innovative social safety nets project aiming at offering to the underserved part of the Nigerian population the support needed to fulfill their right for a dignified life. Because we tend to forget this. At the end, this is the aim. It's not just repatriating funds, but that they should get to who needs the most. And in times where everywhere there are clear signals of lacking to adhere to this solidarity principle, you are sending a powerful and crucial political message. And Switzerland is proud to join your voice and efforts by repatriating funds illicitly acquired in adherence to both the principle of leaving no one behind, which is enshrined in the Sustainable Development Agenda, and the commitments we all made at Addis Ababa during the Financing for Development conference. Say that, you know, that there are a lot of skeptical and cynical people out there just waiting for us to fail in our endeavor. Let us prove them wrong in the few years to come when implementing this program. Actually, this agreement contains detailed and viable modalities that can lead the way to others seeking innovative solutions to restitute funds. Since the transfer and disbursement mechanisms, as well as the measures to be taken in the event of abuse and corruption, are detailed in the agreement, we are confident that the risks often associated with restitutions are properly taken care of. And I would like really to thank the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Malami, the Honorable also Minister of Finance Kemi Adeosun, the World Bank Management, and in particular the CEO Kristalina Georgieva, to have taken the lead. But I'm even more thankful to all dedicated teams that have spent days and nights in shaping this agreement. On our side, I would like to specifically mention the duo Daniela and Salome, so stubborn in moving forward to be nicknamed in our Department of Foreign Affairs the Abacha Warriors. Once again, thanks to all of you, and I hope that this is the first of a series of this kind of call it activities. I would like to transform this in a movement. This would be nice if we could see things really moving fast in the future. Thanks a lot again.
May I ask you to proceed, please?
Changing, moving everything.
Please. If only returning proceeds from corruption to their rightful owners was as easy as with allegation of it. Look. Thank you. As everyone here in the audience knows, recovering and returning assets takes a tremendous amount of time, tenacity, patience, and creativity. In fact, as much as it delights me to see Switzerland and Nigeria take this important step to return stolen assets to the Nigerian people, this agreement is also a good reminder to all of us of just how hard and arduous work of international asset recovery is. This is why the agreement signed moments ago by Switzerland, Nigeria, and the World Bank is both an important milestone for asset recovery efforts and also a call to action for all of us to step up our game when it comes to tracing, confiscating, and returning stolen assets. To me, the longer-term goal is reaching a new normal in which these signing ceremonies become a thing of the past because returning stolen assets to their rightful owner is such an everyday occurrence and not a special occasion as we celebrate today. But we are still a long way away from this. So I would like to thank you for this opportunity to witness this important moment. Thank you.
We can leave. I think the minister is staying here.
Okay, so moving on to the next part of the session. So please excuse us as we move the logistics around. I would like to introduce our distinguished guests, the representatives from the 4 GFAR focus countries, Nigeria, Sri Lanka, Tunisia, and Ukraine, to share their experiences with trying to recover the proceeds of corruption from foreign jurisdictions and share their expectations for the outcomes of this forum. If I could please ask Honorary Jayanta Jayasuriya, His Excellency Mabruk Khurshid, and Mr. Valery Chali. May I invite you to join us, please, on the stage. So I remain as the fixed asset of this forum. So the communique of the 2016 Anti-Corruption Summit in London highlights the provision of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption that call for the proceeds of corruption to be identified, seized, confiscated, and returned. The core objective of GFAR is to provide an effective opportunity for GFAR's 4 focus countries to make immediate progress on their active asset recovery cases. Through bilateral dialogue and practitioner interactions, the forum will facilitate efforts for tracing, recovering, and returning proceeds from corruption. The 4 focus countries have each suffered from large-scale corruption and state capture under their former regimes. Vast amounts of stolen naira, rupees, dinar, and hryvnia are sitting in accounts denominated in US dollars, Swiss franc, Singapore dollars, Hong Kong dollars, or euros in financial centers around the world. Meanwhile, the people of the 4 focus countries are paying the price for these crimes. The selection of the focus countries took into account requests from those governments for international assistance with their asset recovery framework and as well as individual cases. For Tunisia and Ukraine, their previous participation in the Arab Forum on Asset Recovery and the Ukraine Forum on asset recovery respectively form the basis for the work of GFAR. In the cases of Sri Lanka and Nigeria, their urgent needs demonstrated were important factors for the choice of focus countries. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce Honorary Malami, Attorney General and Minister of Justice of Nigeria. Honorary Malami, please.
Your Excellencies, distinguished participants, good afternoon. Well, in Nigerian situation, the truth of the matter about corruption is the fact that it has gotten to a stage that one can properly describe as endemic. But then our major worry is the fact that it takes a click of the button for illicit wealth to leave Nigeria to foreign destinations, but then the process of repatriating such wealth eventually takes ages. Arising from that reality, the Nigerian government has taken steps to ensure that preventive measures are put adequately in place to prevent corruption as against concentrating energy in having the ill-gotten wealth repatriated. Major policy decisions and legislations that are put in place by the Nigerian government include the single treasury account, which is a consolidated account by which all the funds belonging to the government are consolidated into a single account maintained by the federal government, thereby taking away the powers and rights of disbursement of funds from ministries, departments, and agencies of government. In addition to the single treasury account, other electronic processes are put in place to bring about technology in the art of prevention of corruption. We have in place, for example, IPs, which is Integrated Salary Structure Payment Platform, by which biometrics of all those that are entitled to certain emoluments are now captured electronically, and payments are, by that understanding, going to be made through electronic process. Through the art of deployment of technology, we have succeeded in substantially weeding out over 30,000 ghost workers out of the payroll of the federal government. And that, in effect, translated to a monumental savings for the government. Over and above the IPs, certain additional measures were equally put in place, among which NAITI, which is a process of extractive industry checks relating to financial dealings. We equally have in place a number of legislations inclusive of Procurement Act, which is intended to regulate the act of procurement. In terms of legislations, fundamentally, we have developed a lot of legislations that are intended to make things difficult for corrupt practices to come to bear in our conduct as it relates to the governance. For example, we have Proceeds of Crime Act, which is a legislation that is put in place, among which the provisions is a provision relating to asset management, putting in place asset management agency, which will be saddled with the responsibility of managing the recovered assets. Whistleblower policy is another policy that has proven to be very effective in the fight against corruption within the Nigerian state. By that policy, the government has encouraged citizens to actively partake in the act of exposing corruption and corrupt practices. Those disclosures that are made, which have financial undertones, are indeed, those that are responsible for making disclosures are entitled to a certain percentage for each and every recovery that has been made. I am happy to report that arising from that policy, Nigeria has succeeded in recovering a lot of stolen assets within a period of 2 years, much more than any other time before in the existence of the nation. In terms of enforcement as well, the government has taken serious measures in bringing people of substance, capacity, and skill by way of appointment into the enforcement agencies responsible for the fight against corruption. A lot of institutions are put in place in that respect, among which are the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Independent Corrupt Practices Commission, and indeed Code of Conduct Bureau, among others. These institutions, arising from the political goodwill of the government, have been given the free hand to operate, apprehend, investigate, and indeed prosecute people that are found to have been involved one way or the other in corrupt practices. So in essence, Nigeria has succeeded substantially in cleansing the system of governance by way of, one, bringing about necessary policies that makes it difficult for people to engage in corrupt practices through institutional strengthening, by way of having, through institutional strengthening, by way of supporting the institutions to act effectively and efficiently, by way of bringing about electronic and technological means of ensuring that corruption is eliminated, and indeed by way of bringing about necessary legislations. By way of further consolidation on the advantages or the existing merits or associated, consolidating on the existing gains associated with the fight against corruption, Nigeria has equally identified the relevance of civil society organizations. And to this extent, Nigeria has given sufficient accommodation to civil society organizations by way of making them part and parcel of the anti-corruption crusade of the government. It is on account of the accommodation extended by the Nigerian state to civil society organizations that they indeed constitute part and parcel of the agencies assigned a greater role in the disbursement of the $321 million that we are witnessing, the ceremony of which we have witnessed this afternoon by way of signing the Memorandum of Understanding. So civil society organizations are accorded a great role in the act of fight against corruption within the Nigerian state, and they are being indeed viewed as partners of progress as against the traditional way they are being looked upon as being antagonistic to government policies. So in essence, the experience of Nigeria is that it is easy in the international scene for money to be taken out of the system, but very difficult for such monies eventually to be repatriated. Arising from our experience, I think if there is an area that we need as a forum to look into with the purpose of enhancing international cooperation, is that of simplifying the art of repatriation of the ill-gotten wealth. It does not make sense to make it easy for the money to move out of a country and for the victim of crime to suffer a series of impediments in terms of having this money repatriated at the end of the day. But then the greater lesson we learned out of it all is to work towards prevention of corruption and put in place measures that will make it difficult for corruption to thrive. I thank you most sincerely for listening.